Close your eyes for a moment and imagine that you are standing at the edge of the greatest empire the ancient world has ever known. Around you stretches a network of roads unlike anything humanity has built before, thousands upon thousands of miles of carefully engineered stone highways connecting bustling cities. Remote villages, towering mountain fortresses, lonely desert outposts, and distant military camps scattered across 3 continents. These roads carry merchants with wagons full of silk and olive oil, weary soldiers marching toward uncertain battles, wealthy senators traveling with armed escorts, pilgrims seeking temples, and ordinary families hoping for a better life. Yet among all these travelers, few carry a burden more important than the man you are about to become. You are not a general whose victories will be carved into marble. You are not an emperor whose face will appear on silver coins. You are not a philosopher, a gladiator, or a famous architect remembered in history books. Instead, you are something far quieter but no less essential. You are a Roman messenger, one of the countless forgotten men responsible for keeping an empire alive through nothing more than speed, endurance, and absolute reliability. Every decision made in Rome depends upon men like you. Every military victory begins with a message. Every peace treaty, tax order, emergency warning, and imperial decree travels inside the small leather satchel hanging from your shoulder. Without messengers, governors would rule blindly, armies would fight without orders, cities would never know when danger approached, and the emperor himself would become isolated from the enormous empire he claims to control. Long before telephones, radios, trains, or satellites, information moved only as fast as a horse could run and as long as a determined rider could survive. Tonight, you will discover what that truly meant. Before sunrise, your day begins inside a quiet government posting station where fresh horses wait behind wooden fences and oil lamps still burn against the darkness. Stable workers prepare animals that have already carried dozens of exhausted couriers before you. Leather saddles are tightened, water skins are filled, and official documents are carefully sealed with wax bearing the authority of Rome itself. Those seals are more valuable than gold. Breaking one without permission can lead to severe punishment. Losing one may cost not only your position but possibly your life. You quickly learn that a messenger is trusted with secrets capable of changing entire provinces. Some letters announce military reinforcements. Others contain arrest orders for corrupt officials. Some warn cities about approaching barbarian raids. Others carry news of an emperor's death, a political conspiracy, or the appointment of a new governor. Often, you have no idea what you are carrying. Your duty is not to ask questions. Your duty is simply to deliver the message as quickly as possible. Every mile matters. Every hour matters. Somewhere far away, someone is waiting for the words inside your satchel, and the future may depend upon whether you arrive in time. The roads ahead are beautiful, but they are far from safe. The Roman Empire appears peaceful on maps, yet maps never show the dangers hidden between destinations. Dense forests shelter bandits who watch the roads from the shadows. Mountain passes become deadly during winter storms. Rivers swell after heavy rain, destroying bridges and trapping travelers for days. Wolves roam isolated regions after sunset. In distant provinces, rebels sometimes attack anyone carrying imperial symbols. Even your own horse can become your enemy if exhaustion causes it to stumble on steep mountain paths. Every journey forces you to make difficult choices. Ride harder and risk killing your horse, or ride carefully and arrive too late. Sleep for a few hours and lose valuable time, or continue through the darkness despite overwhelming exhaustion. Every messenger eventually learns that the greatest battle is often against fatigue itself. Days blur together until you no longer remember which province you left behind or which city lies ahead. Sometimes you wake before dawn unsure of where you are, surrounded only by unfamiliar roads stretching endlessly toward the horizon. Yet despite the hardships, there are moments of extraordinary beauty. You watch the sun rise over snow-covered mountains in northern provinces. You cross endless vineyards glowing beneath the afternoon light. You ride beside the sparkling Mediterranean Sea while fishing boats drift peacefully across the water. You pass towering aqueducts, magnificent temples, bustling marketplaces, and lonely watchtowers standing guard over forgotten frontiers. Few Romans will ever witness as much of the empire as you will. While most people spend their entire lives within a single town, you will travel farther than many soldiers, merchants, or politicians ever imagine. Yet there is a cruel irony hidden within such freedom. Although you see more of the empire than almost anyone else, you rarely have time to enjoy it. Every destination is only another starting point. Every arrival is followed almost immediately by another departure. You become a stranger everywhere, belonging nowhere except the road itself. Home becomes a place you rarely visit. Friends grow older while you are away. Family celebrations happen without you. Seasons pass unnoticed because each day feels like another endless ride toward another distant city. Your life belongs to the road, and the road never truly ends. Throughout this journey, we will ride together across deserts where heat shimmers above ancient stones, through forests where silence hides unseen dangers, over mountain passes covered in snow, and into cities whose futures depend upon the messages tucked safely inside your satchel. We will meet soldiers guarding lonely frontier forts, innkeepers welcoming exhausted travelers, governors anxiously awaiting imperial orders, and fellow couriers whose faces reveal years of hardship beneath the Roman sun. We will witness both the extraordinary engineering that allowed Rome to connect its vast territories and the immense personal sacrifice required to keep that system alive. Because behind every famous emperor stood thousands of forgotten messengers who carried his words across the world, risking their lives mile after mile without expecting glory, wealth, or remembrance. So settle back, get comfortable, and let the sounds of hooves echo across the ancient roads. The stable gates are opening, your horse is ready, the official seal has been placed inside your leather satchel, and somewhere beyond the horizon, an entire empire is waiting for the message only you can deliver. Long before the first rays of sunlight reach the rooftops of Rome, your day has already begun. The city still sleeps beneath a blanket of darkness, its busy markets silent, its fountains undisturbed, and its narrow streets occupied only by the occasional watchman carrying a flickering torch. The air is cool, carrying the scent of damp stone and distant with smoke from fires that never fully died during the night. While senators rest comfortably in grand villas and merchants dream of another profitable day, you tighten the leather straps of your traveling cloak and make your way toward one of the imperial courier stations hidden within the city. It is not an impressive building from the outside. Most citizens walk past it without giving it a second glance, never realizing that some of the most important decisions in the empire begin and end within these simple walls. Here, messages travel farther than armies, and a single sealed letter can determine the fate of entire provinces. As you step inside, the familiar sounds greet you immediately. Horses shuffle impatiently inside nearby stables. Stable boys carry buckets of water across the courtyard. Scribes bend over wooden tables by the light of oil lamps, carefully copying official records, and fellow messengers quietly prepare for journeys that may last days, weeks, or even months. No one wastes unnecessary words this early in the morning. Every courier understands that today's assignment could lead anywhere within the vast Roman world. One rider may travel only 50 miles to deliver routine tax records, while another may be sent across mountains and rivers toward the empire's most dangerous frontiers. There is no predicting where the road will take you until your orders are placed into your hands. Eventually, an elderly administrator approaches carrying several rolled scrolls secured with bright red wax seals bearing the imperial eagle. His expression remains calm, but his movements are precise, revealing years of experience handling matters that cannot afford mistakes. Without ceremony, he places a leather satchel before you. Inside rests a single sealed scroll along with a small wooden tablet listing the route you must follow. You are instructed not to break the seal under any circumstance. Only the governor waiting in the province of Gallia has the authority to open the message. You are told only one thing, that the letter is urgent. Nothing more. You ask no questions because questions are not part of your profession. Roman messengers survive by understanding that curiosity can be more dangerous than ignorance. The less you know about the contents of the message, the safer you remain if robbed, captured, or questioned along the road. You secure the satchel across your shoulder and walk toward the stable where your horse awaits. The animal is a strong bay gelding bred specifically for long-distance travel rather than speed alone. Roman couriers depend on endurance far more than racing ability. The empire has created an astonishing network of official relay stations known as the cursus publicus, where fresh horses can be exchanged throughout long journeys. But the first stretch belongs entirely to you and the horse now breathing quietly into the cold morning air. You gently inspect its hooves, tighten the saddle one final time, secure your water skin, check your knife, and make certain your cloak is wrapped tightly enough to protect against the chilly wind waiting outside the city walls. Experience has already taught you that forgetting even the smallest item can become a serious problem hundreds of miles from home. As the eastern sky slowly begins turning shades of pale blue and gold, the massive gates of Rome creak open. Merchants begin arriving with carts full of grain, vegetables, wine, and livestock while travelers line up to enter the greatest city on earth. You, however, ride in the opposite direction. With one final glance toward the towering walls behind you, you guide your horse onto the Via Flaminia, one of Rome's great stone roads stretching northward across the empire. Almost immediately, the city disappears behind gentle hills, replaced by open countryside covered with vineyards, olive groves, and fertile farmland. Farmers are already awake, tending fields that seem peaceful beneath the rising sun. Children wave as you pass, recognizing the official insignia attached to your satchel. To them, an imperial messenger is a rare and exciting sight. They have no idea that behind the polished image lies a life filled with relentless travel, uncertainty, and exhaustion. The road itself is remarkable, a masterpiece of Roman engineering built to survive generations. Large stone slabs fit together with astonishing precision beneath your horse's hooves. Drainage ditches line both sides, preventing rainwater from destroying the surface. Mile markers stand at regular intervals, silently measuring the enormous distances connecting one end of the empire to the other. Every few miles you encounter travelers moving in every direction imaginable. Merchants lead caravans loaded with cloth from the east. Soldiers march in disciplined formations toward distant forts. Priests journey between temples. Government officials ride beneath colorful cloaks accompanied by armed guards. Some greet you politely. Others step aside immediately after noticing the imperial insignia, understanding that official messengers always receive priority upon the road. Hours pass quickly as the morning sun climbs higher. Soon the comfortable coolness disappears, replaced by growing heat. Dust rises beneath countless hooves and wagon wheels, coating your boots and cloak with a thin layer of pale earth. Although the scenery remains beautiful, the journey demands constant attention. Loose stones, wandering livestock, broken wagon wheels, and unexpected obstacles can all turn an ordinary ride into disaster within seconds. More than once you are forced to slow your horse while crossing narrow bridges spanning fast-moving rivers. Elsewhere, steep hills require careful pacing to avoid exhausting the animal too early. Every experienced messenger learns that reaching the destination depends just as much upon preserving the horse as pushing it forward. By midday, you arrive at the first official relay station. Built beside the road itself, the small complex contains fresh horses, food supplies, simple sleeping quarters, and government employees responsible for assisting authorized travelers. Your documents are inspected briefly before stable workers immediately begin caring for your horse. Within minutes, another animal stands ready for the next stage of the journey. The efficiency is astonishing. Rome understands that information loses value if delayed, so every relay station functions like another heartbeat keeping the empire alive. You eat quickly. A piece of coarse bread, cheese, dried figs, and watered wine, never allowing yourself more than a few minutes of rest before climbing into the saddle once again. The afternoon ride proves more demanding than the morning. Clouds gather unexpectedly over distant hills, and before long, heavy rain begins falling across the countryside. The carefully built Roman road remains firm beneath your horse, but visibility quickly worsens. Your cloak grows heavy with water. The leather satchel carrying the imperial message must be protected above everything else. You wrap it carefully beneath your cloak while urging the horse onward through the storm. Thunder echoes across the valleys as lightning briefly illuminates the surrounding landscape. Travelers seek shelter beneath roadside inns and abandoned farm buildings. Yet you continue riding because official messages cannot simply wait for better weather. Somewhere far ahead, a governor still waits for news he does not yet know could shape the future of his province. By the time evening finally approaches, the storm has passed, leaving the world washed clean beneath a sky glowing with brilliant shades of orange and crimson. Your horse breathes heavily after the long day's travel, and your own muscles ache from hours spent in the saddle. At last, another relay station appears beside the road. Smoke rises peacefully from its chimney while lanterns flicker outside the entrance, welcoming exhausted travelers. The first light of dawn has barely touched the eastern horizon when you are already back in the saddle, leaving the relay station behind before most of its occupants have even opened their eyes. A cold mist clings to the Roman countryside, covering the fields in a pale silver blanket that softens every hill and tree along the road ahead. Your horse's steady hoofbeats echo against the carefully laid stone pavement, becoming the only sound in a world that still seems half asleep. The road stretches endlessly before you, disappearing into the morning fog like a ribbon leading toward places you have never seen. Somewhere beyond those distant hills waits the governor of Gallia, unaware that every passing hour brings his message closer. You have traveled only a single day, yet it already feels as though Rome belongs to another lifetime. That is the strange nature of being an imperial messenger. Home never remains behind you for long before another unfamiliar landscape takes its place. Every sunrise belongs to a different province. Every sunset finds you sleeping beneath another roof, and every morning begins with the same simple thought: keep riding. The empire measures distance in miles, but a messenger measures it in horses, aching muscles, and fading daylight. As the mist slowly disappears beneath the warming sun, the countryside comes alive around you. Farmers guide oxen through freshly turned fields while shepherds lead enormous flocks of sheep toward open pastures. Small villages begin stirring with activity as smoke rises from clay chimneys and children chase one another between simple wooden homes. Occasionally someone notices the imperial insignia fastened to your satchel and steps respectfully aside as you pass. Even in the smallest settlements, people recognize what that emblem represents. They may never meet an emperor or a senator during their lifetime, but a Roman messenger carries a piece of imperial authority wherever he rides. Some villagers wave politely, others simply watch in silence, wondering what important news is traveling across their roads today. Few realize that the man carrying those messages often knows no more than they do. The sealed scroll remains untouched inside your satchel, its wax seal still perfectly intact despite hundreds of miles of constant movement. Whatever words rest inside it remain hidden from everyone except the man chosen to receive them. By late morning, the road begins climbing into rougher country. The gentle farmland slowly disappears behind rocky hills covered with pine forests and steep valleys. Here, the famous Roman roads become even more impressive. Massive stone retaining walls support dangerous mountain paths carved directly into the landscape. Engineers built these routes decades ago, ensuring that even the most difficult terrain could not prevent communication between distant provinces. Looking around, you cannot help admiring the extraordinary effort required to construct such roads without modern machinery. Thousands of laborers, soldiers, and engineers transformed mountains themselves into pathways for the empire. Every stone beneath your horse's hooves represents countless hours of human labor completed long before your journey ever began. Yet magnificent roads cannot remove every danger. As the afternoon progresses, the traffic around you grows noticeably thinner. Merchants prefer traveling in large groups through these isolated hills because bandits are known to operate nearby. Travelers occasionally disappear without explanation. Abandoned wagons have been discovered overturned beside the road, their cargo stolen and their owners nowhere to be found. You instinctively keep one hand close to the small knife hanging from your belt, though you know it offers little protection against organized criminals. Imperial messengers are tempting targets. Many thieves assume government couriers carry gold or valuable documents worth stealing. Fortunately, attacking an official courier brings severe punishment if caught, and even criminals understand that Rome rarely forgives those who interfere with imperial business. Still, fear never completely leaves your thoughts. Every bend in the road hides uncertainty. Every dense forest seems capable of concealing unseen eyes watching from the shadows. Near midday, you encounter another traveler riding alone. He wears the dusty cloak of a merchant and leads 2 pack mules loaded with baskets covered beneath heavy cloth. As your paths briefly cross, the man greets you politely before warning that a recent landslide has partially blocked the main road farther ahead. Thanking him, you continue forward with greater caution. Several miles later, his warning proves accurate. Huge boulders and broken trees now cover part of the roadway where heavy rain recently weakened the mountainside. Several workers from a nearby village struggle to clear the obstruction while travelers wait impatiently. You quickly present your official travel tablet to the local foreman. Upon recognizing your authority, the workers immediately create enough space for a single horse to pass. Moments like these remind you how much privilege accompanies your profession. Ordinary travelers might lose an entire day waiting for repairs. Imperial messages cannot afford such delays. The empire itself quietly bends to keep its words moving forward. Hours continue slipping away beneath the rhythm of steady riding. The mountain air grows cooler as clouds drift across the sky, casting long shadows over forests stretching endlessly toward the horizon. During quieter moments, your thoughts begin wandering. You wonder what news the governor is waiting to receive. Is the scroll announcing new taxes? Military reinforcements? A promotion? Perhaps it carries a warning of approaching enemies or instructions concerning political unrest. Every possibility seems equally likely. Over the years, experienced messengers learn never to invent stories about their cargo because reality often proves stranger than imagination. Some letters have ordered armies into battle. Others have ended wars before they began. A single scroll small enough to fit inside your satchel may influence the lives of tens of thousands of people without you ever reading a single word written upon it. That realization never entirely loses its weight. Late in the afternoon, the peaceful rhythm of the journey suddenly changes. Ahead, you notice several riders approaching from the opposite direction at an unusually fast pace. Their horses are covered with sweat, and their expressions reveal obvious urgency. As they draw closer, you immediately recognize them as fellow imperial couriers. One briefly raises his hand in greeting but does not slow down. There is no time for conversation. Whatever message he carries must be just as important as yours. Within seconds, the riders disappear behind you, racing toward Rome with the same determination driving you away from it. For a brief moment, you think about the countless invisible lines connecting these roads. Every day, hundreds of messengers travel in every direction, carrying news that ties together one of history's greatest empires. Most never meet the people whose lives their messages will change. They simply ride, deliver, receive another assignment, and ride again. It is an endless cycle built upon trust, endurance, and remarkable discipline. As evening approaches, the mountains finally begin giving way to broad valleys once more. Vineyards cover the hillsides while rivers sparkle beneath the fading sunlight. The beauty of the landscape almost convinces you to slow your pace, but habit quickly overcomes temptation. Every hour saved today means reaching tomorrow's destination that much sooner. Eventually, another relay station appears in the distance, its familiar stable yard already busy with fresh horses and weary travelers arriving from every corner of the empire. As you dismount, your legs protest after another exhausting day in the saddle. Stable workers immediately lead your horse away, while another official carefully records your arrival in government records. Supper is modest: warm lentil stew, coarse bread, cheese, olives, and cool water drawn from a nearby spring. By the third morning of your journey, the familiar rhythm of travel has completely taken over your life. You no longer think about mounting your horse, adjusting the leather straps across your shoulders, or checking the wax seal inside your satchel. Your body performs these actions automatically, the same way a soldier instinctively reaches for his sword before battle. The road itself has become your home. Every sunrise finds you somewhere new, and every sunset leaves another unfamiliar town behind. You begin to realize that being an imperial messenger is not simply a profession. It is a life spent constantly moving between places that never truly belong to you. The relay station where you slept the previous night is already disappearing behind the hills as dawn paints the eastern sky in soft shades of gold and pale orange. Thin layers of mist drift across the valleys below, while birds circle above ancient forests stretching toward the horizon. For a brief moment, the empire appears peaceful, almost timeless. It is difficult to imagine that hidden beneath this beautiful landscape are countless political rivalries, military conflicts, tax disputes, and desperate pleas for help. all of which eventually find their way into the leather satchel hanging from your shoulder. Every message carried by men like you represents someone's fear, someone's hope, or someone's ambition. Somewhere, a governor waits anxiously for orders. Somewhere else, a legion commander wonders whether reinforcements are coming before winter arrives. Entire provinces continue their daily lives without realizing that their future may already be galloping toward them along these ancient roads. As the morning progresses, the road begins following the course of a wide river whose clear waters reflect the growing sunlight like polished silver. Fishermen work quietly from small wooden boats while women wash clothes along the riverbanks. Children stop their games to watch you pass, fascinated by the official insignia attached to your satchel. They probably imagine the life of an imperial courier as exciting, filled with adventure and endless travel. In many ways, they are right. Few people ever see as much of the Roman world as a messenger. Yet they cannot see the aching muscles hidden beneath your cloak, the blisters forming beneath your hands from holding leather reins hour after hour, or the loneliness that slowly grows inside every man whose closest companion is often the horse beneath him. Adventure loses much of its glamour after weeks of sleeping in unfamiliar beds and waking before sunrise every single morning. The road offers freedom, but it also demands sacrifice. Around midday, you approach a bustling market town surrounded by sturdy stone walls. Merchants from every corner of the empire crowd its streets, selling spices from the east, colorful fabrics from Egypt, wine from Italy, olive oil from Hispania, and finely crafted pottery from Greece. The marketplace overflows with voices speaking different languages, proving just how enormous the Roman world has become. Normally, you might enjoy wandering through such a lively place, tasting unfamiliar foods or listening to traveling musicians performing beside crowded fountains. But a messenger rarely has such luxuries. Official business leaves little time for sightseeing. Instead, you ride directly toward the local relay station where fresh horses await government couriers. Stable workers recognize your credentials immediately. Before you even dismount, another horse is already being prepared. Everything happens with remarkable efficiency. The Roman courier network functions almost like the veins of a living body, carrying information instead of blood. Every relay station plays its part perfectly, ensuring that messages never remain still for long. During the brief meal provided to you, consisting of coarse bread, smoked meat, cheese, olives, and watered wine, you overhear merchants discussing troubling rumors spreading across nearby provinces. Some speak of increased bandit activity along forest roads. Others mention unrest near distant frontiers where local tribes have become unusually aggressive. An elderly trader claims an entire caravan disappeared only a few weeks earlier after attempting to cross an isolated mountain pass. Stories like these travel quickly across inns and marketplaces. Whether they are true hardly matters. Every messenger understands that danger exists whether people choose to speak about it or not. You thank the stable workers, tighten your saddle once again, and continue northward before the afternoon heat becomes unbearable. Several hours later, the road enters one of the largest forests you have encountered since leaving Rome. Towering oak and pine trees rise high above the roadway, their branches forming a natural roof that blocks much of the sunlight. The temperature drops noticeably beneath the thick canopy, and the cheerful sounds of nearby villages fade into silence. Only your horse's steady hoofbeats and the occasional call of distant birds disturb the stillness. Experienced travelers often dislike forests like this. They provide excellent cover for wolves, wild boars, and, more importantly, men with darker intentions. Your eyes constantly scan the trees while your hand remains close to the knife hanging from your belt. Every snapped branch makes you turn your head. Every shadow between the trees seems capable of hiding someone watching the road. Hours pass without incident, yet the tension never fully disappears. Then, just as the forest begins thinning, you notice movement ahead. 3 riders stand beside the road near a broken wagon whose wheel appears badly damaged. At first glance, they seem like ordinary travelers asking for assistance. But something immediately feels wrong. Their horses carry no cargo despite supposedly transporting goods. Their clothing appears deliberately worn rather than naturally aged. Most importantly, they pay far more attention to your satchel than to their damaged wagon. Instinct, sharpened by years on the road, quietly warns you to remain cautious. Rather than slowing down, you urge your horse forward while keeping a careful distance. One of the strangers raises a hand, calling for help, but his companions exchange quick glances that confirm your suspicions. Before they can react further, your horse is already galloping down the road at full speed. Behind you, angry voices briefly echo through the trees, followed by the pounding of hooves. They are coming after you. Adrenaline surges through your body as the chase begins. The carefully maintained Roman road now becomes your greatest ally. Your horse races across smooth stone while the men behind struggle to close the distance. Every curve in the road offers another chance to escape. Every hill hides what lies ahead. You lean lower over the saddle, encouraging your exhausted mount to give everything it has. The leather satchel bounces heavily against your side, reminding you what truly matters. This is no longer about your own safety. Whatever message rests inside that sealed scroll must not fall into the wrong hands. After what feels like an eternity, the forest finally opens into wide farmland once again. In the distance, you spot a small military patrol riding along the road toward you. The pursuing riders notice them almost immediately. Without hesitation, they turn their horses and disappear back into the trees before the soldiers even realize what has happened. You slow your horse only after reaching the patrol, explaining briefly that suspicious men attempted to intercept an official courier. The soldiers promise to investigate while encouraging you to continue without delay. Although the danger has passed, your heart continues racing long afterward. That evening, as you finally arrive at another relay station, exhaustion feels heavier than ever before. Not because of the miles traveled, but because of the constant awareness that every journey may bring dangers impossible to predict. Sitting quietly beside the stable while your horse drinks fresh water, you watch the sun disappear behind distant hills and think about the countless messengers who traveled these. By the 4th day of your journey, you begin to understand why veteran couriers rarely speak about distance. Distance means very little when every road presents a different challenge. Some days you ride across peaceful countryside where vineyards stretch to the horizon and shepherds greet passing travelers with friendly smiles. Other days the empire feels enormous, empty, and unforgiving, where hundreds of miles pass without seeing anything except forests, mountains, abandoned watchtowers, and lonely stretches of stone road disappearing into the distance. This morning belongs to the second kind. Before sunrise, you leave the relay station with a fresh horse and another waterskin tied securely behind your saddle. The air is noticeably colder than it has been during previous mornings, and a thick layer of fog clings to the valleys surrounding the road. Even the stable master, a man who has watched thousands of couriers come and go over the years, quietly advises you to be careful. Heavy rains have fallen farther north, he explains, and several bridges may have become dangerous. You thank him, pull your cloak tighter against the wind, and guide your horse into the pale morning mist. Soon the relay station disappears completely behind you, swallowed by the silence that always seems to accompany the earliest hours of the day. Riding through fog is unlike riding beneath a clear sky. Familiar landmarks vanish. Distant hills disappear. The world shrinks until it consists of little more than the road directly beneath your horse's hooves. Every sound becomes sharper. The steady rhythm of hoofbeats echoes through the mist, while unseen birds call from hidden branches somewhere beyond your sight. Occasionally, another traveler suddenly appears only a few yards ahead before disappearing once again into the white curtain behind you. It feels as though the empire itself has faded away, leaving only you, your horse, and the endless Roman road stretching toward an invisible destination. As the sun slowly climbs higher, the fog begins lifting, revealing a landscape completely different from the one you left behind yesterday. The countryside has become rough and uneven, dominated by steep hills covered in ancient forests whose towering trees seem untouched for centuries. Massive stone cliffs rise above the road while narrow rivers cut through deep valleys below. Roman engineers somehow forced their roads through this difficult terrain, carving passages directly into mountainsides and constructing magnificent bridges that span rivers with astonishing precision. Every mile reminds you that the empire was built not only by soldiers, but also by thousands of anonymous laborers whose work allows people like you to travel safely across lands that once seemed impossible to cross. Yet, even Roman engineering has limits. Shortly before midday, you arrive at one of the largest stone bridges along your route. Normally, it carries merchants, soldiers, wagons, and travelers without difficulty. But today something is terribly wrong. A section of the bridge has partially collapsed after days of relentless rain. Dozens of people have gathered on both sides, uncertain whether it remains safe to cross. Ox carts stand motionless while merchants argue loudly about possible detours that could add several days to their journeys. Farmers stare helplessly at the rushing river below, hoping someone will offer a solution. You dismount to inspect the damage yourself. The central arch remains standing, but one side of the stone roadway has cracked badly. Local workers have placed temporary wooden supports beneath the damaged section, though nobody seems entirely confident they will hold much longer. Every traveler faces the same difficult question. Wait for repairs that could take days or risk crossing now. For ordinary merchants, the choice depends upon profit. For you, carrying an imperial message, delay is hardly an option. After presenting your official travel tablet to the local engineer supervising repairs, you receive permission to attempt the crossing. Stable workers help lighten your horse by removing unnecessary equipment while several laborers stand ready nearby in case something goes wrong. You take a slow breath before guiding your horse onto the damaged bridge. Every step feels unnaturally loud. The wooden supports groan beneath the combined weight of horse and rider. Beneath you, the swollen river crashes violently against the stone foundations, carrying broken tree trunks and debris downstream with frightening speed. Halfway across, the horse hesitates. It senses the instability beneath its hooves far better than any human could. You lean forward, speaking softly while gently encouraging it onward. Another step, then another. The bridge creaks again, louder this time. For one terrifying moment, several loose stones tumble into the rushing water below. Everyone watching holds their breath. Finally, after what feels like an eternity, your horse reaches solid ground on the opposite side. A wave of relief passes through the gathered crowd behind you. Some merchants even applaud quietly before preparing to attempt the crossing themselves. You waste no time looking back. The road continues north, and so must you. Hours later, the weather changes once again. Dark clouds gather rapidly above the mountains, driven by powerful winds that seem to appear from nowhere. Within minutes, rain begins falling harder than anything you have experienced since leaving Rome. Unlike the brief storm several days earlier, this one refuses to pass. Water pours relentlessly from the sky, transforming the road into a shining ribbon of wet stone. Visibility drops dramatically. Your cloak becomes soaked despite every attempt to protect it. The leather reins grow slippery in your hands while your horse struggles to maintain steady footing across the slick surface. Thunder rolls continuously through the mountains, echoing between towering cliffs with tremendous force. Lightning flashes illuminate the landscape for only a heartbeat before darkness returns once more. Under different circumstances, any sensible traveler would seek shelter immediately. But somewhere far ahead, an important official still waits for the sealed scroll hidden safely beneath your cloak. Every delay increases the possibility that whatever news you carry may arrive too late to matter. The burden of responsibility presses more heavily upon your shoulders than the rain itself. As afternoon slowly fades into evening, you finally discover an abandoned roadside shrine dedicated to Mercury, the Roman god of travelers and messengers. The small stone structure offers little comfort, but its roof provides enough shelter for both you and your exhausted horse to escape the worst of the storm. You remove your soaked cloak, carefully inspect the leather satchel, and feel a surge of relief. The message remains perfectly dry. The wax seal is still untouched. Despite everything the weather has thrown against you, your true responsibility has survived unharmed. While waiting for the rain to weaken, you study the faded carvings decorating the shrine's walls. Countless travelers have undoubtedly stopped here over many decades, perhaps even centuries. Merchants, soldiers, pilgrims, farmers, and fellow couriers all seeking a brief moment of safety before continuing their journeys. Some probably reached their destinations successfully. Others may never have left these roads at all. The Empire's highways connect magnificent cities, but they also silently collect forgotten stories that history rarely records. By sunset, the storm finally begins moving eastward. The sky clears just enough for brilliant rays of golden light to break through the remaining clouds, illuminating the rain-soaked countryside with breathtaking beauty. Water sparkles on every leaf while distant mountains glow beneath the evening sun. It is one of the most beautiful sights you have witnessed since leaving Rome, made even more extraordinary because it follows hours of relentless hardship. You climb back into the saddle one final time and continue toward the nearest relay station, your horse moving steadily despite its obvious exhaustion. As darkness slowly settles across the land, by the fifth day, the rhythm of the imperial roads has become so deeply ingrained that you no longer notice the endless miles passing beneath your horse's hooves. Instead, you begin measuring time in relay stations, sunrise departures, and the number of horses exchanged since leaving Rome. The Empire unfolds before you like an enormous living map, every province connected by roads that pulse with constant movement. Soldiers march toward distant frontiers carrying polished shields that glimmer beneath the morning sun. Merchants guide long caravans filled with exotic spices, silk, wine, marble, and grain. Pilgrims slowly make their way towards sacred temples, while farmers travel to nearby towns hoping to sell the harvest that will feed thousands. Each traveler has a destination, yet none of them move with the urgency demanded of an imperial messenger. While others may stop to admire a beautiful valley or spend an extra evening inside a comfortable inn, your journey is dictated entirely by sealed orders resting safely inside your leather satchel. Every delay feels like failure, Every wasted hour feels like stealing time from someone waiting far beyond the horizon. The responsibility never truly leaves your thoughts. Even while eating, resting, or sleeping, part of your mind remains fixed upon the message entrusted to your care. Somewhere, a governor continues waiting for news that could change the course of his province, completely unaware of the mountains, rivers, storms, and dangers standing between him and the words written inside that tightly rolled scroll. As dawn slowly gives way to morning, the countryside begins changing once again. The gentle farmland disappears behind you, replaced by rolling hills covered in endless vineyards stretching as far as the eye can see. Workers move carefully between neat rows of grapevines, preparing for the coming harvest while wagons already overflow with wooden barrels destined for distant Roman markets. The sweet scent of crushed grapes drifts through the cool air, briefly replacing the familiar smells of leather, horses, and dust that have surrounded you since leaving the capital. It is a peaceful landscape, one that almost convinces you to forget your responsibilities for a few precious moments. Yet the road never allows such luxury for long. Before midday, the hills gradually flatten into broad open plains where the wind blows freely across endless fields of golden grain. Here, the road becomes remarkably straight, disappearing into the distance with almost unnatural precision. Roman engineers designed these highways not for beauty, but for efficiency. Looking ahead, you can see travelers hours before reaching them, tiny figures slowly growing larger beneath the endless sky. Such openness provides both comfort and unease. There are no hidden forests where bandits can wait unseen, but there is also nowhere to hide from the relentless heat now rising beneath the afternoon sun. Dust clings to your boots, your cloak, your hands, and even your face. Every breath tastes faintly of dry earth. Your horse's steady breathing reminds you that it, too, is beginning to tire. You stop briefly at a small relay station built beside a natural spring where fresh water flows continuously from the rocks. The stable master immediately recognizes the official insignia attached to your satchel and wastes no time preparing another horse. While workers exchange saddles and equipment, you sit quietly beneath the shade of a large olive tree sharing bread, dried meat, cheese, and cool water with another imperial courier who has just arrived from the opposite direction. Like yourself, he carries sealed messages whose contents remain unknown even to him. Couriers rarely ask one another unnecessary questions. Instead, they exchange something far more valuable, information about the roads ahead. He warns you that a military column has temporarily occupied several miles of highway farther north, slowing civilian traffic considerably. He also mentions that one of the larger relay stations recently lost several horses after an unexpected illness spread through the stables, forcing couriers to rely upon fewer fresh mounts than usual. Such conversations rarely last longer than a few minutes, yet they often determine the success of entire journeys. Before long, both of you climb back into your saddles, nod politely, and disappear in opposite directions without even learning each other's names. There is a strange brotherhood among Roman messengers. You may never meet the same courier twice, yet every rider understands the hardships carried by the others. The road itself is the only common home any of you truly possess. Several hours later, the courier's warning proves accurate. The sound reaches you long before the soldiers themselves become visible. The rhythmic clatter of armor, the creaking of supply wagons, the distant calls of officers issuing commands, and the steady march of thousands of sandaled feet gradually fill the afternoon air. Soon you round a gentle bend and find yourself staring at one of the largest Roman military columns you have ever encountered. Legionaries stretch across the road for what seems like endless miles. Their polished helmets shine beneath the bright sun, while crimson standards wave proudly above perfectly ordered ranks. Heavy wagons loaded with food, weapons, spare equipment, and siege tools slowly rumble forward behind them. Engineers, cavalry units, physicians, blacksmiths, cooks, and servants accompany the marching soldiers, creating what resembles an entire moving city rather than an army. For ordinary travelers, such a column could mean waiting hours before continuing. Fortunately, imperial couriers possess special authority. Presenting your official travel tablet to a mounted officer quickly changes everything. Orders are shouted down the line. Soldiers step aside with remarkable discipline, creating a narrow path through the center of the advancing legion. As you ride between hundreds of silent soldiers, countless eyes briefly follow you. Some men look curious. Others appear exhausted after weeks of marching. A few smile knowingly, recognizing another servant of the Empire whose duty, though different from their own, is equally essential. Without messengers, armies like this would never know where to march or when to fight. Without armies, messengers would have no empire left to connect. The two professions depend completely upon one another. Once safely beyond the military column, the road grows quiet again. The silence feels almost overwhelming after the endless noise of marching soldiers. As afternoon slowly fades toward evening, your thoughts wander to the countless messages currently traveling across the Roman world. Somewhere another courier races toward the emperor carrying reports from Britain's distant frontier. Elsewhere, another messenger crosses the scorching deserts of Syria with orders destined for eastern governors. Others ride through North Africa, Hispania, Germania, Greece, and Egypt. Thousands of sealed scrolls move across the empire every single day, each carried by men whose names history will never remember. Together they create an invisible web of communication stretching farther than any single Roman citizen could ever imagine. Looking toward the horizon, you begin appreciating the true scale of the world surrounding you. Rome does not remain united simply because of its armies or its laws. It remains united because information continues flowing without interruption from one end of the empire to the other. As sunset approaches, brilliant golden light washes across the plains while long shadows stretch over the ancient stone road beneath your horse's feet. Another relay station finally appears ahead, its stable lanterns glowing warmly against the gathering darkness. Workers greet you with practiced efficiency, leading away your exhausted horse while another official records your arrival in government records that have been maintained for decades. Supper is simple but comforting, and as you sit beside a crackling fire listening to distant conversations between merchants and travelers, you realize something. Several more days have passed since leaving Rome, and somewhere along the countless miles behind you, the capital has faded into little more than a distant memory. The excitement that often accompanies the beginning of a journey has long disappeared, replaced by a quiet determination that only experienced travelers understand. Your world has become beautifully simple. Wake before sunrise, saddle a fresh horse, secure the leather satchel across your shoulder, check the imperial seal one final time, ride until exhaustion, sleep for a few hours, then begin again. Every morning follows the same pattern, yet no 2 days on the Roman roads are ever truly alike. Some roads welcome you with gentle hills, fertile valleys, and cheerful villages where children wave as you ride past. Others lead into lonely wilderness where the only sounds are the wind, the distant cry of birds circling overhead, and the steady rhythm of hoofbeats echoing across ancient stone. Today, however, promises something entirely different. Before dawn, while preparing to leave another relay station, the stable master quietly warns every traveler gathered in the courtyard that the road ahead passes through one of the most isolated regions of northern Italia. There are no major towns for many miles, few farms, few travelers, only forests, steep hills, abandoned watchtowers, and long stretches of empty road where a man may ride for hours without seeing another human soul. Such places always make even experienced couriers uneasy. Solitude offers peace, but it also means help may never arrive if something goes wrong. You tighten the straps securing your baggage, thank the old stable master for his warning, and guide your horse into the fading darkness just as the first pale light begins creeping over the eastern horizon. The morning air feels colder than usual, carrying the sharp scent of pine trees mixed with damp earth left behind by rain that fell during the night. Thin layers of mist drift lazily between the hills while droplets of water cling to every blade of grass beside the road. For the first few hours, the landscape appears almost magical. Sunlight slowly filters through enormous trees, casting long golden beams across the ancient highway. Small streams cross beneath carefully constructed stone bridges built generations earlier by Roman engineers whose names have long been forgotten. Looking around, you cannot help admiring the astonishing durability of the empire's infrastructure. Even after decades of use, these roads continue carrying soldiers, merchants, pilgrims, governors, and messengers exactly as they were designed to do. Somewhere beneath your horse's hooves lies the labor of thousands of workers who shaped the stones one by one, never imagining that centuries later countless lives would still depend upon their craftsmanship. By late morning, the forests become thicker than anything you have encountered since beginning your journey. Towering pines block much of the sunlight, leaving the road beneath them cool and strangely silent. The deeper you travel, the fewer signs of civilization remain. Abandoned milestones lean slightly with age. Crumbling shrines dedicated to Mercury stand forgotten beside the highway, their carved inscriptions worn smooth by generations of wind and rain. Occasionally you pass the ruins of old guard posts built long ago during earlier campaigns, now slowly being reclaimed by nature. Moss covers broken stone walls while vines creep through empty doorways where soldiers once kept watch over the Empire's lifelines. It becomes increasingly easy to imagine how isolated these roads must have felt during the earliest years of Roman expansion, when wilderness stretched unbroken across enormous distances. Hours continue passing without another traveler in sight. Even your horse seems aware of the unusual silence, occasionally lifting its head to listen toward the surrounding forest before continuing forward. Around midday, you stop beside a clear mountain spring to refill your water skin. While the horse drinks peacefully, you kneel beside the cold water and allow yourself a few precious moments of rest. It is during this quiet pause that you finally notice how deeply fatigue has settled into your body. Your shoulders ache constantly beneath the weight of your satchel. Your hands have grown rough from gripping leather reins day after day. Your legs feel permanently stiff after so many hours in the saddle. Yet perhaps the greatest exhaustion is not physical at all. It is the constant awareness that every decision matters. Every shortcut, every delayed departure, every unexpected obstacle, every choice influences whether the message arrives when it is needed most. The burden of responsibility never leaves you, even while sleeping. After resuming your journey, the road gradually begins climbing into higher elevations where the air grows cooler and the forests slowly give way to steep rocky slopes. From several overlooks you can see miles upon miles of Roman territory stretching toward the horizon. Tiny villages appear like scattered dots beneath the afternoon sun, while distant rivers sparkle like silver threads winding through the valleys below. Standing atop one particularly high ridge, you briefly stop your horse simply to admire the incredible view. It occurs to you that very few people will ever witness so much of the empire during a single lifetime. Senators may govern provinces. Generals may conquer distant lands. Merchants may visit prosperous cities. But imperial messengers travel everywhere. You ride through places most Romans know only from stories. Yet despite seeing more than almost anyone else, you rarely remain long enough to truly experience any of it. Every beautiful landscape becomes another memory disappearing behind you before sunset. Every remarkable city becomes merely another stop along an endless route. Freedom, you realize, often comes disguised as another form of loneliness. As afternoon begins fading toward evening, distant smoke suddenly catches your attention. At first, you assume it rises from a village hidden somewhere beyond the hills. But as you ride closer, the truth becomes painfully clear. A small roadside inn has recently burned almost to the ground. Blackened wooden beams still stand among the ruins, while frightened survivors attempt to salvage whatever possessions escaped the flames. Several wagons remain overturned nearby, their cargo scattered across the roadside. You immediately dismount and offer assistance where possible. An elderly innkeeper explains that the previous night a kitchen fire spread rapidly through the dry wooden buildings before anyone could stop it. Fortunately, most travelers escaped safely, though nearly everything else was lost. As you help move supplies away from the smoking ruins, the old man notices the imperial insignia attached to your satchel. His tired expression softens slightly. "Keep riding," he says quietly. "Messages cannot wait for disasters." His words stay with you long after you leave. There is something profoundly Roman about that simple sentence. Lives may change overnight. Homes may burn. Storms may destroy bridges. Armies may march. Yet the empire continues moving forward because someone always keeps riding. As darkness finally approaches, you reach another relay station built against the side of a rocky hillside overlooking the valley below. Lanterns flicker warmly outside its entrance while tired horses rest quietly inside sturdy wooden stables. After handing over your exhausted mount, you climb a small staircase leading to your simple room. Before sleeping, however, you step outside one final time. Above you stretches one of the clearest night skies you have ever seen. Thousands of stars cover the heavens from horizon to horizon, while the Milky Way shines brightly across the darkness like another ancient road connecting distant worlds. Somewhere beneath those same stars, countless other Roman couriers continue riding in every direction imaginable. Some carry military orders. Others transport tax records, legal decrees, diplomatic letters, or personal correspondence from the emperor. The seventh day of your journey begins beneath a sky unlike any you have seen since leaving Rome. Dark clouds gather long before sunrise, stretching from one end of the horizon to the other, swallowing the stars one by one until the entire countryside lies beneath a heavy blanket of gray. Even the horses inside the relay station seem unusually restless, stamping their hooves against the stable floor while stable boys whisper among themselves about the coming weather. An elderly courier finishing his own journey quietly shakes his head as he passes you. "The mountains ahead never forgive a storm," he says before disappearing into the building. Those words remain with you long after you tighten your saddle and begin riding into the dim morning light. Within the first hour, the wind begins to rise. What starts as a gentle breeze soon becomes powerful enough to tug at your cloak and whistle through the trees lining the ancient Roman road. Fallen leaves race across the stone pavement ahead of your horse while distant thunder rolls across the mountains, sounding less like a storm and more like an army marching somewhere beyond the hills. The familiar road that has carried you safely for hundreds of miles suddenly feels far less welcoming. Nature cares little for imperial authority. The Emperor's seal inside your satchel means nothing to the wind, the rain, or the steep cliffs waiting farther ahead. As the morning continues, the first heavy drops begin falling, darkening the ancient stones beneath your horse's hooves. Within minutes, the rain becomes relentless. Water pours from the sky with astonishing force, transforming the carefully engineered road into a shining ribbon reflecting flashes of distant lightning. The valleys around you disappear behind curtains of rain, while the surrounding forests become little more than dark silhouettes moving through the mist. Every sound changes. The steady rhythm of hoofbeats is replaced by splashing water. Tree branches groan beneath powerful gusts of wind. Small streams quickly swell into rushing torrents, crossing the road in places where they did not exist only hours before. Your horse lowers its head instinctively against the rain, continuing forward with cautious determination. You wrap your cloak tightly around the leather satchel resting against your side, checking repeatedly that the precious scroll remains dry. No matter how miserable the journey becomes, protecting that message remains your highest duty. Several hours later, the road begins climbing toward one of the highest mountain passes on your entire route. Normally, the climb offers spectacular views stretching for miles across the Roman countryside. But today there is nothing beyond the rain except shifting gray clouds and jagged rocks disappearing into the fog. The climb is slow and exhausting. Your horse struggles for secure footing on the wet stones while cold wind sweeps through the narrow pass with surprising strength. Every step demands complete concentration. One careless movement near the edge could send horse and rider tumbling into the rocky valley far below. You have crossed rivers, forests, and lonely plains since leaving Rome, yet this mountain feels different. Here, the greatest enemy is not another person but the landscape itself. Halfway through the ascent, you notice fresh rocks scattered across the roadway ahead. They are small at first, little more than loose stones that have rolled down from the cliffs above. Then the sound reaches your ears. A deep grinding noise echoes somewhere higher up the mountain. You immediately recognize it as shifting rock. Without hesitation, you urge your horse forward, hoping to clear the exposed section before anything worse happens. Seconds later, part of the mountainside collapses. Massive boulders crash onto the road behind you with terrifying force, sending clouds of dust and shattered stone exploding into the rain-soaked air. The ground trembles beneath your horse as fragments of rock bounce across the ancient highway. You never stop looking ahead. Every instinct tells you that slowing down now would be a mistake. Only after reaching a safer section of the pass do you finally turn to look behind. The road you crossed moments earlier has vanished beneath tons of broken stone. Any traveler arriving now will be forced to wait days, perhaps weeks, until engineers reopen the route. You sit silently in the saddle, realizing how narrowly you escaped disaster. Had you paused for only a minute to rest your horse or refill your water skin, you would almost certainly still be standing beneath that collapsing cliff. Fate, luck, or perhaps Mercury himself has allowed your journey to continue. The rain eventually weakens during the afternoon, replaced by a cold mountain mist drifting lazily between towering peaks. The silence that follows the storm feels almost unreal. Small waterfalls now pour down every cliff face, fed by the enormous amount of rain that has fallen throughout the day. Birds slowly return to the sky while patches of sunlight begin breaking through the clouds, illuminating the wet landscape with brilliant golden light. The mountain appears transformed, as though the storm never existed. Nature possesses a remarkable ability to erase its own violence. Yet the evidence remains scattered along the road in the form of broken branches, flooded ditches, and fresh landslides, reminding every traveler how fragile even Rome's greatest roads can become. Near sunset, you finally descend into a quiet valley where another relay station waits beside a fast-moving river. Stable workers greet you with surprised expressions after hearing about the landslide from earlier travelers who witnessed the collapse from a safer distance. While your horse is carefully dried and fed inside the stable, you sit beside the fire warming your hands for the first time all day. Around you, merchants, soldiers, pilgrims, and fellow travelers exchange stories about washed-out roads, dangerous crossings, and miraculous escapes. Everyone has survived something. Everyone carries another story home. Listening quietly, you begin understanding that the Roman roads are more than stone highways connecting cities. They are living paths filled with thousands of human lives crossing one another every single day. Every traveler carries hopes, fears, responsibilities, and destinations unknown to everyone else sharing the road. Some journeys are remembered forever. Others disappear completely from history. As darkness settles over the valley and rain begins softly tapping against the relay station roof once again, you carefully inspect the leather satchel resting beside your bed. The imperial seal remains untouched. The scroll inside is perfectly dry despite the storm, the mountains, and the falling rocks that nearly ended your journey. Tomorrow, another road awaits beyond the valley, carrying you ever closer to Gallia. Yet tonight, as the wind whispers through the trees outside and the fire slowly burns lower, you cannot help but wonder how many forgotten Roman messengers crossed these same mountains before you, and how many of them were never fortunate enough to see the sunrise waiting beyond the storm. On the 8th morning since leaving Rome, something feels different the moment you open your eyes. It is not the weather, nor the road waiting beyond the relay station, nor even the familiar weight of the leather satchel resting beside your bed. It is the realization that you have now spent more than a week living almost entirely on horseback. The city where your journey began feels impossibly distant, as though it belongs to another life. You struggle to remember the sounds of Rome's crowded streets or the smell of fresh bread drifting from the bakeries before sunrise. Instead, your memories are now filled with endless roads, relay stations, changing horses, cold mornings, lonely forests, roaring rivers, and countless horizons that always seem just beyond reach. Somewhere during the past several days, the road itself has quietly become your home. Every sunrise greets you from a different landscape, and every evening introduces another unfamiliar place where you will sleep for only a single night before continuing onward. There is something strangely beautiful about such a life, but also something deeply lonely. You belong everywhere and nowhere at the same time. As dawn slowly brightens the eastern sky, the stable workers prepare another fresh horse for the next stage of your journey. They work with practiced efficiency, saying little as they tighten the saddle, inspect the animal's hooves, and refill your water skin. Men working at relay stations understand couriers better than almost anyone else in the empire. They know your stay will be brief. They know you carry responsibilities too important to delay. Most importantly, they know that another exhausted messenger will likely arrive before sunset, needing exactly the same quiet assistance before disappearing once again into the distance. After thanking them, you climb into the saddle and ride north, leaving behind another place whose name you may never remember. The road soon begins descending from the mountains you crossed during yesterday's terrible storm. Morning sunlight now floods the valleys below, revealing a landscape washed clean by heavy rain. Rivers sparkle brilliantly beneath the clear blue sky while waterfalls still tumble down rocky cliffs, their flow stronger than ever before. Every tree seems greener, every field brighter, every breath of air fresher than it did only a day ago. Nature possesses an extraordinary ability to transform hardship into beauty. Looking across the valley, it becomes almost impossible to believe that only yesterday these same mountains threatened your life with landslides and violent storms. The world moves forward without remembering its own fury. Perhaps people do the same. Several hours later, the road enters one of the busiest regions you have traveled through since leaving the capital. Traffic steadily increases until the ancient highway becomes crowded with every imaginable kind of traveler. Large merchant caravans creak beneath enormous loads of goods destined for northern provinces. Farmers drive wagons overflowing with grain and vegetables toward nearby markets. Pilgrims dressed in simple robes walk patiently beside the road, carrying small bundles upon their backs. Wealthy Roman citizens ride comfortably beneath colorful canopies while servants and guards accompany them on horseback. You even pass a troupe of actors transporting elaborate costumes and painted stage decorations toward a city preparing for upcoming festivals. Watching the endless variety of people moving across the empire reminds you that Rome is far more than armies and emperors. It is millions of ordinary lives connected by these roads. Every traveler carries a different purpose, yet all depend upon the same remarkable network of highways built generations ago. Without these roads, the empire would quickly fall apart into isolated regions unable to communicate with one another. Around midday, you arrive at a large relay station unlike any you have visited before. Rather than serving only couriers, this complex resembles a small village built entirely around the needs of travelers. Blacksmiths repair damaged horseshoes while wheelwrights fix broken wagons. Bakers remove fresh loaves from enormous stone ovens, filling the air with an irresistible aroma. Stable boys hurry between rows of horses while government officials carefully record the arrival and departure of imperial couriers. Soldiers on leave share meals beside merchants from distant provinces whose accents reveal journeys far longer than your own. For the first time since leaving Rome, you allow yourself a slightly longer rest. Your horse deserves it after days of relentless travel, and truthfully, so do you. Sitting beneath the shade of an ancient oak tree, you quietly eat bread, roasted chicken, olives, dried figs, and fresh goat cheese while observing the constant movement around you. Every few minutes another courier arrives covered in dust, exchanges horses, signs official records, and disappears once more onto the road. The entire system operates with astonishing precision, almost like a giant machine whose countless moving parts somehow remain perfectly synchronized despite the enormous distances separating them. During your meal, an elderly courier notices the imperial insignia attached to your satchel and politely asks permission to sit beside you. His gray hair and weathered face reveal decades spent traveling the same roads you have only recently begun to know. Unlike most travelers, he does not ask where you are going or what message you carry. Instead, he smiles gently before saying, "The hardest part of this life is not the riding." Curious, you ask what he means. He gazes quietly toward the endless road stretching north before answering. "The hardest part is watching the whole world pass by without ever truly becoming part of it." His words remain in your thoughts long after the conversation ends. Before you can ask another question, he quietly stands, mounts his horse, and rides away toward the south, disappearing into the same endless road from which you once came. You never even learn his name, yet somehow those few sentences teach you more about your profession than weeks of writing ever could. The afternoon passes peacefully as the road winds through prosperous farming villages surrounded by vineyards, orchards, and wheat fields shimmering beneath the warm summer sun. Children run beside the road, waving excitedly whenever they notice your official satchel. Elderly villagers pause from their work to watch another imperial messenger disappear toward the horizon. Most of them will never travel farther than the neighboring town during their entire lives, while you continue crossing provinces almost without thinking. Yet, as you remember the old courier's words, you begin wondering which life truly offers greater freedom. The people living here know every neighbor, every season, every familiar hill surrounding their homes. You, meanwhile, know hundreds of roads but possess no place that truly belongs to you except whichever relay station awaits at the end of the day. As evening slowly approaches, golden sunlight bathes the countryside in warm colors, while long shadows stretch across the ancient stones beneath your horse's feet. Eventually, another relay station appears beside the road, its lanterns already glowing softly in preparation for nightfall. After handing your exhausted horse to the stable workers, you climb the small hill overlooking the station before supper is served. From there, you watch the Roman road disappearing toward both horizons, one leading back to Rome, the other carrying you ever closer to Gallia. Travelers continue moving in both directions without pause, each following a destination known only to themselves. Standing there beneath the fading evening light, you suddenly understand something that had never occurred to you before. Empires are not held together by walls or armies alone. They survive because countless ordinary people continue moving, carrying goods, delivering messages, building roads, raising families, and performing countless forgotten tasks every single day. You are only one small part of that enormous system. History may never remember your name, but somewhere ahead, a governor still waits for the message only you can deliver. By the 9th day of your journey, the road has become so familiar that you can almost predict its rhythm before each new sunrise. You wake long before dawn, as you always do, not because someone orders you to, but because your body has learned the habits of an imperial courier. Outside the relay station, the world is silent except for the occasional snort of a horse and the soft crackling of a fire that burned throughout the night. The stable boys move quietly through the darkness carrying lanterns, preparing fresh horses for travelers who must leave before the first light reaches the horizon. The stars still hang above the countryside as you tighten your saddle one final time, secure the leather satchel against your shoulder, and gently stroke the neck of the powerful gray horse waiting to carry you through another exhausting day. Every courier develops small rituals before departure. Some whisper a short prayer to Mercury, protector of travelers and messengers. Others inspect every strap twice or touch the imperial seal for reassurance. You have never considered yourself especially superstitious, yet without realizing it, you always pause for a single moment before mounting your horse, taking one slow breath while looking toward the endless road ahead. It is your quiet reminder that every new day may bring challenges impossible to foresee. Some roads reward preparation, others reward luck. The wisest messenger never relies entirely upon either. As daylight slowly spreads across the countryside, the landscape begins changing once again. The broad farmlands gradually disappear behind you, replaced by gently rolling hills dotted with vineyards, orchards, and small fortified villages built from pale stone. Smoke rises peacefully from chimneys while farmers already work among olive trees despite the early hour. For a time, the journey feels almost effortless. The weather is calm, the road remains smooth, and your horse moves confidently with the steady pace of an experienced mount accustomed to long distances. You allow your thoughts to wander as miles quietly disappear beneath polished Roman stone. You think about the governor waiting in Gallia, still unaware that the message carrying Rome's authority grows closer every hour. You wonder whether he checks the road each morning, expecting to see a courier appear over the next hill. Perhaps he has been waiting for days. Perhaps the decision contained within your satchel will determine military deployments, tax collections, or even the future of an entire province. You still know nothing about the contents of the scroll, yet the longer you carry it, the heavier it seems to become, not because of its weight, but because of the invisible importance attached to it. Near midday, you approach one of the Empire's larger crossroads, where several major Roman roads intersect beneath the shadow of an impressive stone milestone listing distances to cities spread across the western provinces. Travelers gather here from every direction. Merchants barter loudly while wagon drivers argue over the quickest routes. Soldiers refill their water skins beside a public fountain built decades earlier by imperial engineers. The crossroads feels alive, almost like a miniature version of Rome itself. Every language spoken across the empire seems to echo through the busy square. Greek merchants negotiate prices with Gallic traders. Veterans share stories from distant frontiers. Children chase one another around the ancient milestone without the slightest awareness that they are playing beside one of the great arteries connecting an empire. You pause only long enough to exchange horses at the nearby relay station before continuing north. Time remains your greatest enemy. Beautiful places are meant to be admired by ordinary travelers. Messengers simply pass through them. The afternoon brings something you have not experienced since leaving the capital: a convoy traveling under direct imperial protection. Ahead, several heavily armed cavalrymen escort a line of wagons reinforced with iron fittings and surrounded by disciplined legionaries. Their equipment is cleaner than that of ordinary soldiers, their formation tighter, their expressions more alert. Whatever they are protecting is valuable. As you approach, one officer immediately notices the official insignia displayed upon your satchel. After briefly inspecting your travel credentials, he offers permission to ride alongside the convoy for several miles where your routes coincide. For the first time in days, you are surrounded by people rather than silence. One of the younger officers, curious about your profession, asks whether riding alone across the empire ever becomes frightening. You smile quietly before answering honestly. The frightening part isn't riding alone. It's realizing how much depends on arriving. The officer nods thoughtfully. As soldiers, they understand responsibility well, yet even they admit that an imperial messenger carries a different burden. A defeated army may retreat. A delayed message can change history before anyone realizes it arrived too late. Together you continue along the road while conversation drifts toward ordinary subjects rarely discussed inside government buildings. The officers speak about families waiting hundreds of miles away. One has not seen his daughter in nearly 3 years. Another quietly admits he barely remembers what his hometown looks like anymore after serving on distant frontiers for so long. Listening to them, you realize how similar your lives truly are. Soldiers defend the empire with discipline and steel. Messengers defend it with endurance and speed. Both professions require sacrificing ordinary lives for responsibilities greater than themselves. Before long, the convoy turns west toward another military route while you continue north alone once again. One officer raises his hand in farewell. Within minutes, both groups disappear from one another's sight, swallowed by different roads leading toward different destinations. Late in the afternoon, the weather remains pleasant enough that you finally allow yourself a slower pace. Your horse has performed remarkably well throughout the day, and there is no need to exhaust such a loyal animal unnecessarily. As you ride, your eyes wander toward the remarkable engineering surrounding you. Stone drainage channels still function perfectly despite decades of use. Bridges span rivers with elegant precision. Milestones remain standing exactly where Roman surveyors placed them generations earlier. Every few miles, small watchtowers overlook important sections of the highway, reminding travelers that Rome's presence extends even into the quietest corners of the countryside. It becomes increasingly clear that the empire was not built solely through conquest. It was built through planning, organization, and an extraordinary commitment to connecting distant lands. Every road beneath your horse's hooves represents countless forgotten workers whose names disappeared from history despite making journeys like yours possible. As evening approaches, long shadows stretch across the highway while the setting sun bathes the landscape in warm golden light. In the distance, you finally catch sight of one of the largest relay complexes on your entire route. Unlike the smaller stations scattered along isolated roads, this one resembles a fortified village surrounded by sturdy walls, large stables, workshops, storage buildings, and comfortable lodgings reserved for officials traveling on imperial business. Couriers arrive and depart almost continuously. Some look exhausted beyond words, while others have only just begun journeys that may carry them thousands of miles. After handing over your horse, you climb the wooden stairs leading toward your room before pausing on the balcony overlooking the busy courtyard below. Watching the constant movement of people and animals, you suddenly realize something profound. None of these travelers knows your name. Tomorrow, they will remember neither your face nor your destination. Yet for one brief evening, all your lives have intersected because of a single road stretching across the Roman world. History often celebrates emperors who ruled from magnificent palaces, but empires are truly sustained by ordinary people whose paths cross quietly beneath open skies before separating forever. As darkness settles across the relay station and distant lanterns begin illuminating the courtyard below, you carefully place the leather satchel beside your bed one final time before closing your eyes. Another day has passed. Another province lies behind you. Gallia grows closer with every sunrise, and somewhere beyond tomorrow's horizon, the message you have protected since leaving Rome is finally nearing the hands for which it was written. The 10th morning begins with an unusual sense of anticipation, though at first you cannot explain why. Perhaps it is because the miles already traveled now greatly outnumber those still ahead. Perhaps it is because the names of the northern provinces no longer exist only on maps but have become real places beneath your horse's hooves. Or perhaps it is simply the quiet instinct developed by every experienced courier, the feeling that a journey slowly approaches its most important moments. Whatever the reason, you leave the relay station before sunrise carrying the same leather satchel that has accompanied you every mile since departing Rome. Yet it somehow feels lighter than before, not because the message weighs any less, but because you know its destination is finally drawing near. The road ahead stretches across the final Great Plains before the frontier of Gallia, and for the first time since beginning your assignment, every milestone reminds you not only of how far you have come, but of how close you are to finishing what countless officials, horses, engineers, and fellow couriers have made possible. The air is crisp beneath the early morning sky, and a thin layer of frost still clings to the grass beside the ancient highway. Your horse exhales clouds of white vapor as it settles into a comfortable pace, its steady rhythm matching the quiet confidence growing inside you. Long journeys change a person in ways that cannot easily be measured. You have become stronger without noticing, more patient, more observant. The frightened courier who first rode through Rome's northern gate 10 days ago now seems almost like another man entirely. The road has taught lessons no instructor could ever provide. It has shown you that endurance matters more than speed, preparation more than confidence, and calm judgment more than courage alone. Every obstacle overcome has quietly shaped you into something different. As the sun rises higher, the countryside gradually transforms into vast open grasslands broken only by scattered villages and occasional watchtowers standing guard over the imperial highway. Herds of cattle graze peacefully while shepherds guide enormous flocks across rolling hills untouched by the noise of crowded cities. The farther north you ride, the more subtle differences begin appearing. The architecture of farmhouses changes slightly. The accents spoken by villagers become unfamiliar. Even the clothing worn by ordinary people reflects local traditions blended with Roman influence. This is one of the remarkable realities of the empire. Though Rome governs these lands, every province still preserves pieces of its older identity. The roads connect cultures without completely erasing them. You find yourself wondering how many generations have watched imperial couriers ride through these same villages carrying messages from distant emperors whose names eventually faded into history. Somewhere, long after your own journey has been forgotten, another messenger will almost certainly follow this very road carrying another sealed scroll beneath another rising sun. Near midday, the weather remains wonderfully clear, allowing you to see farther than at any previous point in your journey. Standing atop a gentle ridge, you pause briefly to admire the incredible landscape unfolding before you. Miles of fertile countryside stretch toward distant forests whose dark green edges mark the beginning of Gallia itself. Somewhere beyond those trees waits the governor entrusted with the message resting inside your satchel. It feels strangely satisfying to finally see the province that has existed only as a destination in your thoughts for so many days. Yet seeing it also reminds you that your duty is not yet complete. Experienced couriers understand that the most dangerous part of any mission is often believing it has already succeeded before reaching its true conclusion. Many accidents happen close to the finish simply because tired travelers allow themselves to become careless. You refuse to make that mistake. Every buckle remains checked. Every horse exchange remains efficient. Every mile receives the same attention as the very first one leaving Rome. During the afternoon, you encounter a group of Roman engineers supervising repairs along a damaged section of highway. Several recent storms have weakened part of the roadbed, leaving workers carefully replacing cracked stones, while surveyors inspect nearby drainage channels. One gray-haired engineer notices your official insignia and invites you to rest for a few minutes while your horse drinks from a nearby trough. As you speak, he proudly explains that he has spent more than 30 years maintaining imperial roads across multiple provinces. People think armies built the empire, he says with a quiet smile while watching laborers fit enormous stone blocks together with astonishing precision. Armies conquered it. Roads kept it alive. His words remain with you long after you continue riding. Looking beneath your horse's feet, you realize how true they are. Without these roads, governors would never receive instructions. Legions would march too slowly. Merchants could not move goods efficiently. News would travel weeks too late to matter. Even the emperor himself would become isolated from the provinces he claimed to rule. Every perfectly placed stone beneath you represents another invisible thread holding together one of history's greatest civilizations. Later that afternoon, you arrive at a small military checkpoint positioned where the road enters the territory officially administered by the governor of Gallia. Roman soldiers inspect travelers entering the province, ensuring trade records remain accurate and security remains strong. After briefly examining your travel documents and recognizing the imperial seal attached to your satchel, the commanding officer immediately orders the gates opened without delay. His respectful salute reminds you that the authority you carry belongs not to yourself, but to the Empire. Even officers commanding armed men understand that messages from Rome often possess greater power than swords. Beyond the checkpoint, the landscape changes once again. Dense forests alternate with wide farming settlements, while newly harvested fields stretch toward distant rivers shining beneath the afternoon sun. Every mile now carries a growing sense of purpose. You are no longer simply traveling north. You are approaching the end of a responsibility that has consumed every waking moment since leaving the capital. Yet strangely, rather than excitement, you begin feeling something closer to reflection. You think about every horse that carried you safely through storms and mountains, every stable worker who prepared fresh mounts before sunrise, every relay station that welcomed exhausted couriers regardless of the hour, every engineer who maintained the roads, every anonymous laborer who repaired bridges after floods. Your journey has never truly belonged to you alone. It has depended upon hundreds of ordinary people performing forgotten tasks with quiet professionalism. The Empire often celebrates famous men, but its true strength lives inside countless invisible hands working together without recognition. As evening approaches, you finally arrive at the last major relay station before the governor's administrative city. The atmosphere here feels different from every previous stop. Officials move with greater urgency. Couriers arrive carrying reports from nearby military forts while scribes hurriedly organize records destined for Rome. You are informed that, if all goes well, tomorrow's ride will be your final one. For the first time in many days, you allow yourself a genuine smile. After caring for your horse and eating a simple evening meal beside other government travelers, you step outside into the cool night air. The stars once again fill the heavens above the northern frontier, just as they did over Rome so many nights ago. Yet you no longer feel like the same man who first looked up at them before beginning this assignment. The road has changed you in ways no map could ever describe. Tomorrow, the governor will finally receive the sealed message entrusted to your care. Your duty will be fulfilled, but deep inside, you already know something else. When another assignment eventually arrives and another horse is saddled before another sunrise, you will answer without hesitation. Because somewhere along these endless roads, the 11th morning arrives with a strange mixture of relief and melancholy. After so many days spent chasing distant horizons, the end of your assignment finally lies within reach. Before sunrise, the relay station is already alive with quiet activity. Lanterns sway gently in the cold morning breeze while stable workers prepare the finest horses reserved for government couriers carrying official imperial correspondence. Unlike previous mornings, there is a noticeable sense of urgency among the officials. The governor's administrative city lies only a day's ride away, and messages arriving from Rome are never treated as ordinary deliveries. As you secure the leather satchel across your shoulder one final time, you instinctively run your fingers over the unbroken wax seal that has survived storms, rivers, collapsing mountainsides, lonely forests, suspicious strangers, and nearly 2 weeks of relentless travel. The scroll inside remains exactly as it was when it first left the capital. That simple fact fills you with a quiet sense of pride. Your responsibility has never been to understand the message. It has only been to protect it. Yet protecting words can sometimes demand as much courage as carrying a sword into battle. The stable master hands you the reins with a respectful nod before quietly saying, "You'll be home soon." His words make you pause for a brief moment. Home. The thought feels unfamiliar now. You smile politely but say nothing. Somewhere during this journey, the meaning of that word has changed. Rome may be where you were born, but the road has become the place where you truly belong. You climb into the saddle just as the first golden light appears above the eastern hills, and together you and your horse begin what should be the final ride of this long assignment. The countryside unfolds peacefully beneath the growing morning sun. Gentle mist rises from nearby rivers while birds fill the cool air with songs that somehow seem brighter than on previous days. The roads here are wider and busier than those leading through the wilderness farther south. Farmers travel toward nearby markets with wagons overflowing with grain and fresh vegetables. Craftsmen transport tools between villages. Roman officials ride beneath colorful cloaks accompanied by small escorts of soldiers. Everyone seems to be moving with quiet purpose, each person playing a small role in the enormous machine that is the empire. Watching them, you realize something that had never occurred to you during the earlier stages of your journey. Every person you have encountered over the past 11 days has depended upon someone else. Farmers depend upon merchants. Merchants depend upon roads. Roads depend upon engineers. Governors depend upon messengers. Emperors depend upon governors. The Roman world functions because millions of ordinary people complete ordinary tasks with extraordinary consistency. History often remembers only those standing at the top, yet beneath every famous emperor exists an invisible foundation built by countless forgotten lives. You are merely one stone among many, yet remove enough stones and even the greatest monument eventually falls. As midday approaches, the administrative city finally appears in the distance. Long before reaching its gates, you can already see the unmistakable signs of provincial authority. Watchtowers overlook the surrounding countryside while sturdy stone walls protect government buildings, warehouses, military barracks, and bustling marketplaces. Colorful banners bearing the imperial eagle flutter above the gatehouses, visible from miles away across the open plains. The sight brings an unexpected wave of emotion. For days, this city has existed only as the destination marked upon your wooden travel tablet. Now it stands before you, real and solid beneath the bright afternoon sky. Every mile of hardship has led to this single moment. Yet there is no celebration waiting beyond those walls. Imperial messengers rarely receive applause. Their greatest success is arriving quietly, delivering the message without incident, and preparing for the next assignment before anyone has time to remember their names. You guide your horse toward the southern gate where Roman guards immediately recognize the official insignia displayed upon your satchel. Without delay, the heavy wooden gates swing open. The officer in command salutes respectfully before assigning 2 soldiers to escort you directly to the governor's administrative residence. News of an arriving imperial courier spreads quickly through the government district. Clerks leave their desks. Scribes pause their writing. Junior officials step aside as your escort moves through the crowded streets toward the governor's headquarters. The governor's residence is not a palace in the grand Roman sense, but it is an impressive building nonetheless. Wide marble steps lead toward towering columns supporting a beautifully decorated entrance where soldiers stand silently on guard. You dismount slowly, your legs stiff after so many days spent riding from sunrise until sunset. For a brief moment, you simply stand still, allowing your body to remember what solid ground feels like. An elderly chamberlain approaches with calm professionalism and politely requests the satchel. Instead of handing it over immediately, You first present your official travel tablet documenting every relay station visited since leaving Rome. Procedures exist for a reason. Every messenger understands that the chain of responsibility must remain unbroken until the final recipient officially accepts the delivery. Only after the records are inspected does the governor himself appear. He is older than you expected, dressed in elegant but practical robes reflecting years spent administering distant provinces rather than enjoying luxury inside the capital. Without unnecessary ceremony, he carefully accepts the leather satchel with both hands. In complete silence, he studies the imperial wax seal, confirming that it remains untouched. Satisfied, he nods once before breaking the seal with deliberate precision. For the first time since leaving Rome, the scroll leaves your responsibility and enters another man's hands. The journey that has defined your life for nearly 2 weeks ends in complete silence. The governor reads the contents carefully. His expression changes only slightly, yet you notice it immediately. Whatever news the scroll contains is clearly significant. He quietly folds the document before thanking you for your service on behalf of the emperor. No explanation follows. None is expected. Your duty has never included knowing what history you may have just helped shape. Later that afternoon, after official records are completed and fresh travel documents prepared for your eventual return journey, you finally step outside the governor's residence without the familiar weight of the satchel resting against your shoulder. For the first time in many days, your hands feel strangely empty. You wander slowly through the streets of the provincial capital, no longer rushing toward another relay station or worrying about the condition of your horse. Around you, ordinary life continues exactly as it did before your arrival. Merchants negotiate prices in crowded markets. Children laugh beside public fountains. Blacksmiths strike glowing iron while bakers remove warm loaves from stone ovens. None of these people know that an imperial message arrived only moments ago. None realize that decisions affecting their future may already have begun inside the governor's office because one anonymous courier completed his assignment. Watching the city move through its ordinary afternoon, you begin understanding the greatest truth of your profession. The best messenger leaves no trace behind except the message itself. The scroll matters. The courier does not. Yet perhaps there is quiet honor in such anonymity. You did not ride across mountains seeking glory. You did not cross forests hoping for recognition. You simply carried the empire's words safely from one pair of hands to another. Sometimes that is enough. As the evening sun slowly settles beyond the western hills, casting warm golden light across the rooftops of Gallia, you realize that tomorrow another messenger will depart from this very city, carrying another sealed scroll toward another distant province. The roads will never rest. Neither will the empire, and neither, perhaps, will you. The following morning, for the first time in many days, no one wakes you before sunrise with urgent instructions. No stable boy rushes to prepare a fresh horse. No official waits beside the courtyard holding another sealed scroll marked with the imperial eagle. Instead, sunlight slowly fills the room through the narrow window of the governor's guest quarters, and you remain lying quietly beneath a simple wool blanket, listening to the unfamiliar sound of stillness. It feels almost unnatural. Your body expects movement. It expects another long ride, another relay station, another endless stretch of Roman road disappearing beyond the horizon. Instead, there is only silence. You eventually rise, not because duty demands it, but because habit has become stronger than necessity. Outside, the city is already awake. Merchants arrange goods beneath colorful awnings. Blacksmiths begin hammering glowing iron. Children race through narrow streets laughing without a care. and somewhere nearby church bells, or rather the bronze bells of local temples, echo softly through the morning air. Everything appears wonderfully ordinary. Life continues exactly as it did yesterday, despite the important message that arrived from Rome. Watching the people around you, you realize something remarkable. Empires rarely change in dramatic moments visible to ordinary citizens. More often, they change quietly inside government buildings, through sealed letters carried by forgotten men whose names history never records. Somewhere inside the governor's residence, officials are already acting upon the orders you delivered. New soldiers may soon begin marching. Taxes may be reorganized, roads repaired, laws enforced. Entire communities may unknowingly feel the effects of decisions carried across hundreds of miles inside the satchel that rested upon your shoulder. Yet no one in the marketplace looks toward you with admiration. No statues will ever be raised in your honor. To everyone else, you are simply another traveler passing through their city. At first, such anonymity once seemed unfair. Now, after days spent crossing mountains, rivers, forests, storms, and lonely roads, it feels strangely comforting. The message was never about you. It never needed to be. Later that morning, an official summons you back to the governor's residence. For a brief moment, you wonder whether another emergency has arisen. Perhaps the governor wishes to question you about the journey. Perhaps another message already waits to be delivered. Instead, the meeting proves surprisingly simple. The governor personally thanks you once more for completing your assignment without delay. He signs the final records confirming successful delivery before placing a small leather purse containing your official payment upon the table. It is not a fortune. Couriers rarely become wealthy. Yet every coin represents another successful journey completed, another promise kept between distant corners of the empire. Before dismissing you, the governor pauses for a moment. Rome remembers victories, he says quietly, but Rome survives because men like you arrive on time. The sentence is short, almost casual, yet it remains in your thoughts long after leaving the building. It is perhaps the closest thing to recognition an imperial messenger ever receives. No celebration, no applause, only the quiet understanding that reliability itself can become a form of greatness. With your official duties complete, you finally allow yourself something that has been impossible since leaving Rome: a slow walk without destination. You wander through the city streets with no urgency guiding your steps. The smell of fresh bread drifts from busy bakeries. Local craftsmen carve wood, shape clay, and polish bronze beneath open workshops where curious children gather to watch. Farmers negotiate prices in crowded markets while travelers prepare wagons for journeys beginning where yours has ended. Eventually, your feet carry you beyond the city walls toward a hill overlooking the countryside. From there, you can clearly see the great Roman road stretching endlessly across the landscape, disappearing toward the south where Rome lies far beyond the horizon. Tiny figures move steadily along its ancient stones. Merchants, soldiers, pilgrims, farmers, and somewhere among them, another imperial courier rides toward another distant province carrying another sealed message whose contents he will never know. You smile quietly as you watch him disappear into the distance. He does not know you are watching, just as you never knew the countless couriers who traveled these roads before you. Yet somehow all of you belong to the same invisible brotherhood. Ordinary men trusted with extraordinary responsibility. As the afternoon slowly fades into evening, you begin preparing for the return journey. The horse assigned to carry you back toward Italy waits patiently inside the stable. The familiar smell of leather, hay, and fresh grain greets you once again. This time, however, the satchel resting beside your saddle is empty. There is no urgent scroll, no imperial seal, no governor anxiously awaiting your arrival. Yet as you tighten the saddle straps almost without thinking, you realize something unexpected. Even without a message to carry, the road still calls to you. Somewhere during these long days of riding, you stopped seeing travel as a burden and began accepting it as part of who you are. The endless highways that once seemed intimidating now feel familiar. Relay stations no longer resemble temporary shelters, but places where friends you have never truly met continue waiting with fresh horses, warm meals, and quiet understanding. You now know every sound a Roman road makes beneath different weather. You know how distant mountains look before rain arrives. You know the smell of forests after sunrise, the silence of lonely valleys at dusk, and the remarkable comfort found in a stable lantern glowing warmly after a difficult day's ride. These are lessons no scroll could ever teach. As darkness gently settles across the province of Gallia, you climb into the saddle one final time before turning your horse toward the southern road. Behind you, the governor's city slowly disappears beneath the evening sky. Ahead lies another long journey, though somehow it feels different now. You are no longer simply completing an assignment. You are returning as someone changed by the experience itself. The empire remains enormous. Its roads remain endless.